Hello everyone and welcome to SplitSecond Season 2. This week we will also be celebrating reaching 8,000 subscribers with a giveaway. Look for that around the middle of this video. And by the way, if you're looking to spice up your decks, you should support Ventrocraft and his handmade custom foil altars. Check out the link below, they're gorgeous. This week we are honored to collaborate with the largest Paper Magic the Gathering related Discord on the internet, the amazing PlayEDH. In case you don't know them, they are a Discord channel with over 30,000 members running games 24/7 in a total of 5 curated power levels. If you do enjoy their work, do consider supporting them on Patreon at patreon.com/PlayEDH. The two PlayEDH members joining us are Sigi, an admin, and Jonas, a mentor you might know as Kraum. Baal is on an Aajimu's Landless Golos. Luís is on a Kodama of the East 3/Thrasios partnership. Sigi is playing his version of Urza, and Jonas is playing a pretty solid combination of Kraum/Tevesh. Baal won the role for this match. He has no lands, as expected, although he does have 2 MDFCs in Aajimu the Undercrypt and Kazandu Valley. Leyline of Abundance can net him extra mana on his dorks, namely Paradise Druid and, should he find another creature for it, Loam Dryad. Tormod's Script interacts with people's graveyards while Manamorphose cantrips and keeps him at 2 mana. Luís' opening hand is pretty nice. He has Calling Tarn, Island, and Windswept Heath for lands, while also having a mana crypt to speed him up towards Training Grounds and Sensei's Divining Top. From there, he can pretty much try to rely on Thrasios to grind out while having Natural Order up and ready for whatever is required. Sigi with a very potent hand as well. Island, Academy Ruins, and Ancient Tomb allow him to either use Spellseeker to advance his game plan or hold Hullbreacher to either react to someone else's draw or prepare a wheel of his own. He also has Pact of Negation and Muddle the Mixture to overall protect his wheel or the Hullbreacher. As a quick note, Sigi did not have enough snowlands on him, so it should be noted that for all purposes, his islands are all accounted for as snow. Jonas was a bit unfortunate as his mulligan sent him down to 5 cards in hand. Nonetheless, he has 2 lands in Luxury Suite and Bloodstained Mire, one of which pitchable to Mox Diamond. This gets him towards an Arcane Signet on turn 1. He then has the chance to try and Time Twister and get back in the game. His hand is somewhat soft to counter magic and interaction, but it might just get the job done. He sent Marsh Flats and an island to bottom. This match has some pretty aggressive decks. Let's watch it play out. Baal goes extra first as he drops a Leyline of Abundance as a pre-game action and then starts his turn. He plays a tapped Kazandu Valley and then casts a Tormod Script before passing. Luís decides to roll a bit faster as he starts his turn with a Mana Crypt into a Sensei's Divining Top, which is sent on for a spin. After seeing his top, he plays an island and casts Training Grounds. Pretty well set up. Sigi draws and plays an Ancient Tomb. He then casts his top deck, a good old Spellskite, passing after that. Jonas drops a Luxury Suite and casts Mox Diamond, discarding a Bloodstained Mire. He then goes ahead and just casts an Arcane Signet, also ramping up pretty well. Baal plays an Aajimu the Undercrypt untapped. This allows him to cast Paradise Druid right before passing. He should be at least at 4 mana next turn, so he recovered pretty well. Luís gets pretty lucky as he doesn't take damage from the crypt. He activates the top to draw 1. He does this so that he can get his top card before playing his land for turn, a Scalding Tarn. Luís pulls a Frozen as he lets the top go, cracking Tarn for a Tropical Island and shuffling. He then casts Thrasios, passing. Sigi plays an island, casts a Lotus Petal, and after thinking a bit, decides to pass. Spellseeker and Urza might not be worth it, and he knows that Jonas is really short on cards. Sigi has just the card for that. Jonas starts his turn slamming Time Twister since he is so behind in terms of cards in hand. Sigi gets exactly what he had hoped for as he flashes in his Hullbreacher. After some desperate laughter, Luís shows what he tucked his top for as he casts Force of Will, pitching a Kinnan and targeting the Hullbreacher, hoping to save everyone. Sigi foils those hopes with Pact of Negation. As a last resource, Luís activates Thrasios, bottoming the scry and revealing a forest. It is put on the battlefield. The stack clears out, as does everyone's hands but Sigi's, who gets a mild 21 treasures and draws 7. The table might not make it out after this turn. Baal draws a Chrome Mox that he has nothing to pitch for. He is one short for Golos, so he passes, dreaming of one-shotting Sigi with Goblin Charbelcher. Luís' script adds insult to injury, pinging him. He does the draw-go, passing. Everyone's afraid of it, but here it is. Sigi's turn. He untaps and pays the pack trigger by sacrificing 2 treasures. He then plays and cracks a Misty Rainforest for an island. He follows that by cracking more treasures to cast his commander Urza, getting a solid 1919 construct for his trouble, while being able to keep his treasures on the battlefield and use their mana. Sigi casts Sol Ring and tries to figure if he can straight away win and end the table's misery. He casts a Mystical Tutor for his own Time Twister. He then taps a treasure with Urza, still having basically 15 other Mox Sapphires to use, and casts a Witching Well, leaving both cards on top. Sigi then sacrifices the well to draw 2 so that he can Time Twister. Luís responds with his top deck Swan Song, attempting to save the table a second time. Our hero? He could have been, but Sigi has the Flusterstorm to fight back and Twister resolves, giving him another 21 treasures. A total of 37, which starts 2021 on our channel with a treasure record. 31 of them are untapped, and Sigi then casts an Either Spellbomb and a Mystical Tutor, making Baal regret not cracking his Tormod script before the last graveyard shuffling. Sigi tutors for Time Spiral this time around. He casts a Sapphire Medallion, cracks the Spellbomb to draw Time Spiral, and then wheels the table again. This time, Baal responds and cracks the Tormod script, hoping for no more tutors into wheels. Because Hullbreacher is enjoyable, Sigi gets another 21 treasures for a total of 57, 43 of which are still untapped, and 7 new cards while untapping his lands. Still stuck and without options, Sigi starts activating Urza. He reveals a Misty Rainforest, then an island, a Pongify, which he uses to handle Thrasios. Luís does ponder activating it, but since Sigi seems to be stuck, he'd rather not risk giving him 2 more Moxen by revealing non-land cards and letting Urza cast more free stuff. Another Urza activation gives Sigi a Mox Diamond, which he plays pitching an island. The next activation reveals an Isochron Scepter followed by an island, a Force of Will, and a Narset's Reversal. About to stop, Sigi sees an opening, which makes him activate Urza one last time, and hits an Impulse, which he does cast. He then casts Isochron Scepter and chooses to imprint nothing with it, just so the card is not lost. And hey, it's pretty much an Arcane Signet. Sigi taps it to add blue and casts Chain of Vapor on the Scepter. Holding priority, he casts Narset's Reversal on the chain, returning the pieces he needed to his hand. He then passes, discarding an island to hand size. He's only slightly ahead. Jonas top decks a possible solution, at least to survive the 60-60-ish construct on the table. He casts Demonic Consultation, naming Dockside Extortionist. He does survive the first 6 exiles by not revealing Dockside. However, several good cards are lost forever, namely Underworld Breach, Ad Nauseam, and some tutors, right before his favorite goblin makes him 66 treasures richer. This allows him to cast Tevesh Zat, which he only uses to create 2 Thrall chumped blockers. Jonas passes without casting Kraum, to avoid giving more treasures to Sigi. He has hoarded enough. Baal draws and casts a Wild Cantor, 1 turn away from Golos. Luís wins the Crypt roll and then draws and casts a Sol Ring. He finally gets to cast his Kodama before moving to end step. At this time, Sigi casts Intuition, spelling doom to an already pretty doomed Hellbent table. He reveals Spellseeker, Muddle the Mixture, and Merchant Scroll, all of which can get him Dramatic Reversal to combo with the Isochron he already has in hand. He is given Merchant Scroll. Shockingly enough, Sigi starts his turn casting said Merchant Scroll and getting Dramatic Reversal. He is now able to win through a myriad of ways. He decides to go for a copy artifact, copying Isochron's Scepter and imprinting Chain of Vapor. Sigi is now able to bounce and recast Urza infinite times for infinite constructs. The table does the scoop as he wins this one. Good game. This game was pretty overwhelming, and so everyone decided to get a second one, maybe showcase more of these decks. It should be noted at this point that Jonas swaps his deck for his Brusela Tevesh Breach to showcase something different. Also, before we show you the new hands, we wanted to announce our giveaway. Since we have reached 8,000 subscribers, we will be randomly giving away 3 Commander Legends boosters to one of our patrons. In order to participate, just make sure to be one of our patrons until February starts. These boosters were graciously sponsored by our LGS Arena Porto. Baal won the role a second time. This time around he has 3 MDFCs he can pay life for to enter untapped: Aajimu the Undercrypt, Seagate Reborn, and Turntimber Serpentine Wood. He also has Simian Spirit Guide to ramp him up and an Arcane Signet to stabilize his earlier mana. Loam Dryad lacks a payoff, although he can sink some mana onto Mana Bloom. Jonas has a really solid hand as he once again got 2 lands, Windswept Heath and Exotic Orchard, with a Mox Diamond to pitch one of these if he wishes to, plus Lotus Petal and Rakdos Signet, all of which ramp him up nicely. Finally, he is missing a creature for Diabolic Intent, but adding that to Entomb gives Jonas 2 somewhat conditional tutors at the ready. Luís has 2 lands as well, in Tropical Island and a Forest, while Elvish Mystic could ramp him up, or alternatively, he can just drop a Mystic Remora even if as the 3rd person playing. Nature's Claim and Chain of Vapor both can interact nicely with the rest of the board, and finally he has Summoner's Pact, which he can use for either a grind plan with Seedborn Muse and Thrasios, or just a combo piece for Kodama. Our last player Sigi has 3 lands in Island, Academy Ruins, and Saprozan Scary, which ramps him a little. He has a Trail of Evidence to abuse with Urza, while the rest of his hand is card draw in Time Spiral, Fact or Fiction, and Dig Through Time, the last 2 working nicely together. His hand is on the slow side nonetheless. It's time for match number 2. Baal starts us off with an untapped Turntimber Serpentine Wood. He exiles Simian Spirit Guide, poor guy never gets cast, and plays an Arcane Signet right before passing. Jonas plays Windswept Heath, followed by a Mox Diamond, pitching an Exotic Orchard. Finally, he drops a Lotus Petal. The Heath is cracked for a Scrubland, and Jonas casts a Rakdos Signet, passing the turn. Luís plays a Tropical Island and opens the social stack to complain about turn order. The table foresees Mystic Remora, which does get cast. Sigi draws and plays a Saprozan Scary, tapped before passing. Baal plays another Bolt land in Aajimu the Undercrypt, which is also dropped untapped. He follows that up with Loam Dryad and Renowned Weaponsmith to pretty much assure Golos on turn 3, all according to plan. Jonas casts a pretty freshly drawn Azeroth Oddsmaker, passing. It's pretty tasty with brews. Luís pays for his Starved Remora for lack of a better plan. He plays a Forest and casts an Elvish Mystic, passing. Sigi plays an Island and also passes. He leaves exactly 3 mana untapped, and the table is low-key getting flashbacks from game 1. Baal starts his turn by casting his Golos. It resolves, letting him fetch for the only land in his deck, an Inventor's Fair. After that, he plays a tapped Seagate Reborn and then uses Loam Dryad to tap Golos to cast a Birds of Paradise. Pretty decent turn all around. Jonas plays a Flooded Strand and cracks it for a Plateau, while rechecking Sigi's mana base to see if it somehow is no longer at 3. It is, so he half-scaredly casts Brustarl, giving Azra Oddsmaker Double Strike and Lifelink. At the beginning of combat, Jonas decides he's not scared as he discards a Grim Tutor to Azra to try and draw 4 cards from the Double Strike. He attacks Sigi and his draws do come through. 4 whole cards, not bad at all. On Luís's upkeep, he sadly lets his Malnourished Fish die, especially after seeing someone else draw 4. He casts a Priest of Titania and passes, missing a land drop. Sigi starts things up with an Academy Ruins. Now that the Remora is gone, he merrily casts a Lotus Petal and then casts Urza, getting himself a tiny old construct. Baal draws into an artifact, which would allow him to get Goblin Charbelcher through the fair. However, he is afraid to get wheeled, and instead chooses to use Golos' ability and try that value engine out. He reveals a Merchant of the Veil, Wild Canter, and a Springleaf Drum. He starts with the drum, followed by Canter and Merchant. He then uses Springleaf Drum and Loam Dryad to float mana for a Mana Bloom for 1, and finishes with a Chromatic Star. He passes the turn pretty much set. Jonas just can't get to his combat fast enough, and he does just that, triggering his Azura and discarding a Dark Confidant while targeting the mightiest of the Commander Mustaches. He swings with the Boorish Herder at Luís, giving himself Double Strike and Lifelink. After blocks have been declared and before first strike damage, Jonas casts a Vampiric Tutor. The table opens the stack and shares a fear of Ad Nos, so Luís casts a Chain of Vapor on Bruce. Jonas decides not to copy and then secretly searches for a Dockside Extortionist, regretting not casting the tutor only in response to the draw trigger rather than preemptively. On his second main phase, Jonas casts a Grim Monolith and then a Skull Clamp. He has insane amounts of mana, or some mana if you consider the 66 treasures from last match. Luís untaps and wishes for a land at last. His wish gets denied, and he casts Allosaurus Shepherd before dropping a Lotus Cobra. Right before passing, Luís regrets to himself not simply casting the Summoner's Pact for Seedborn and then grinding with Thrasios. Sigi draws. He plays a Prismatic Vista and cracks it for an island. Then he casts a Trail of Evidence, passing the turn. Simple and clean. Baal gains life from Inventor's Fair. He then draws and casts Ponder, getting out of Belcher activation range, but figuring he could see what he'd get in case of a Golos activation. He draws Balaget Recovery in case the Belcher plan does go sideways, and then activates Golos to set himself for the next turn, exiling Grim Monolith, Elvish Spirit Guide, and an Unseen Silver Library. He casts them all and passes. If you pause the video, you can see that Elvish Spirit Guide is actually shocked to see the battlefield, since that almost never happens. Jonas is once again ready to move to combat, triggering Azura and discarding the poor Bruce Tarl while leaving him in the graveyard. The table is a bit confused by this. Jonas once again attacks Luís with his Azura to draw 2 cards. Azura drew 6 cards in 3 turns. Not bad, huh? On his second main phase, Jonas casts Dockside Extortionist and no one responds. He gets 10 treasures and then equips Dockside with Skull Clamp. He casts Diabolic Intent, sacrificing the Dockside and drawing 2 more cards before resolving the tutor. Jonas moves to casting Grand Abolisher, and the table realizes this could be it. Luís is first to respond and casts Nature's Claim, targeting the Skull Clamp, as he was holding it for an Underworld Breach or a Cloudstone Courier line. It resolves. Now it's Sigi's turn to try and get things done, as he casts Factor Fiction, targeting Baal and getting a clue token from the trail. He reveals Inventor's Fair, Cyclonic Rift, Static Orb, Island, and a Time Twister. After some thinking, Baal divides a land for each side and a blue card for each side, considering forced pitches, while leaving the Static Orb with the Rift pile, so he wouldn't leave too much alongside the tutor and the wheel together. Sigi gets the larger pile and passes priority on Grand Abolisher. Oh boy. Baal ponders for a bit, but has no outs that he could draw to counter the Abolisher. Thus, to Jonas's happiness, it resolves. He then casts a moderate card named Peer into the Abyss, targeting himself. He loses 23 life and draws 38. You can see him struggle with all these cards in his hand. You know, all these ways to win. He starts up with a Chrome Mox, exiling Yawgmoth. He follows with Dark Ritual and then plays Ancient Tomb. He casts LED and is sad that he won't get to show Brusela. So he proceeds to cast an Angel's Grace, the first split-second card of the year. He follows it with a Demonic Tutor. Funnily, after searching the other half of the deck, he notices the card he was looking for was hidden in the middle of the bulk that was his hand, so he just gets another card. Jonas then casts a Wheel of Fortune, which for a second looks nice, but no one can do anything with the Abolisher on the field. Jonas then drops a Mox Opal and a Jeweled Lotus, after which he sacks the LED for triple white and flashbacks Sevin's Reclamation from his graveyard, targeting Underworld Breach and a Bloodstained Mire. With this, he is now able to keep repeatedly casting LED and Wheel of Fortune, decking everyone out while he himself will not lose due to the Angel's Grace effect. The rest of the table ends up losing as they attempt to draw from an empty library. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's matches, everyone. Both guests came out victorious with massive amounts of draw effects. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons and especially Izanagi, Stefan, DJ Rap, Mike Purr, Aajimu, Eagle, Drunken Housecat, Uncrustable, Cosmic Astro, V, RJ, and Starfall, our stack breakers. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Come with us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.